for you.
Good morning, everybody. As we go to the Chitas of today, we are holding today is Tuesday. We're holding in the portion of the A of Shoftim. We're holding in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18, verse number 1. The Kahanim and the whole tribe of Levi will not have a chelik, will not have a part in the Nachal inheritance in the land of Israel. Isha Hashem and Achlasi Echelo, and they eat God's fire offering and his inheritance. Rashi says, Kol Shevet Levi. Why does it say the word Kol? Because it means to add Beint Mimim, Beint Meimum, whether they are blemished, they have handicapped or not. Chelek, they all have a portion. Number one, Babiza, in the spoils of the world. War. The Nachala means an inheritance, the land itself. Ishe Hashem means the sanctified parts of the Beis Hamikdash. In the Beis Hamikdash, there's no offerings in the temple. So they don't have the spoils of war, they don't have a land, but they get the Meiser, Truma Meiser. And Achlase, Eilakotche Gevol, this refers to the produce consecrated throughout the borders of Israel, meaning the Trumais, Meiser, given to the priests and to the Levites respectively. An actual inheritance they must not have amongst the brothers. In Sifri, our sages expound on the word v'nachlase lo yeh. They must not have no inheritance. This refers to the remaining ones bekerev echos amongst their brothers. It refers to the portion of the 5, but I do not know what this refers to. I don't know. Rashi says I don't know what it means. What this means exactly, the Sifri. Nevertheless, it seems to me that the meaning is as follows: the land of Canaan on the western side of the Jordan River is called the territory of 5 nations. As the 2 other nations, the Amorites and the Canaanites, also dwell in the territory of Sichon and Og, already a portion. And the portion remaining ones is stated includes the territory of the Canaanites and the Kenizzites and the Kadmonites. The Safir in the passage communicated to Aaron regarding the priestly entitlements on the passage communicated to Aaron regarding the priestly entitlements expounds the following verse in a similar manner. Therefore, the tribe of Levi didn't have. This prohibits them to receive any territory of the Canaanites, of the Kenizzites, and the Kadmonites, even though not only the 2 that was in Eretz Yisrael, but everything around it. The later found the works of Rabbi Kalmus. There's a version of Sifri, v'nachla yeh loy. They must not have no inheritance. It's first to the portion of the 5 bekerev echo amongst their brothers. Refers to the portion of the 7. So the 7, when you'll see in the Torah, if you remember, that it sometimes mentions 5 nations that were in Etzon, and sometimes it mentions 7 nations. So there is a difference between the 5 and the 7. So the meaning, the portion of 5 tribes and the portion of 7 tribes. Since Moshe and Yeshua apportioned inheritance only to 5 tribes, Moshe appointed to Reuven, Gad, and half a tribe of Manasseh, and Yeshua apportioned to Yehuda, Ephraim, and the other half of the tribe of Manasseh, and the other 7 took to possession the land on their own after Yeshua's death. Is prophetically mentioned the 5 and the 7 separately. So therefore, you have these 2 separate. So first of all, there were 7 different nations, and also there was the difference between the tribe itself. There was 5 tribes that we know that was separated by Moshe and Yeshua. The other 7 took their chelek actually in a different time. And he must not have no land inheritance amongst their brothers. Hashem unachlase, the Eibishter is their inheritance, kashedibalei. And then Rashi is going to again go back to this concept, the 5 and the 7. The rest refers to the inheritance of the remainder of the tribes. amongst their brothers. This refers to the inheritance of the five tribes that were divided by Moshe and Yeshua. I did not know what this means. It appears to me, however, that across the Jordan and onward is called the land of the 5 nations. And that Sichon and Og is called the land of the 2 nations. That as you have 5 and 2, namely the Amorites and the Canaanites. The expression, the inheritance of the remainder, is meant to include the other 3 nations of the 10 whose land God promised to Abraham, namely the Canaanites and the Kenizzites and the Kadmonites. So we have altogether 10 nations. The Sifri in this section dealing with the priestly gifts specified that Aaron expounds in a similar fashion on the verse. Therefore, Levi had no portion or inheritance. To admonish that the Levites to take no portion in the inheritance of the Canaanites and the Kenizzites and the Kadmonites. It has since been found the words of Kalmus, the proper version of this passage, and this is the way the passage goes. It reads as follows: V'nachla lo yilei elo nachlas. These are the inheritance of the 5 nations. B'kerev echav. This refers to the inheritance of the 7 nations. The first, Rashi explains the inheritance. Rashi now explains this version of the Sifri. The first in the reference is the inheritance of the 5 of the 12 tribes of Israel. The second is the inheritance of the remaining 7 tribes of Israel. Now Moshe and Yeshua apportioned the inheritance only to 5 tribes. Moshe to Reuven, Gad, and half of Manasseh. Yeshua apportioned Yehuda and Ephraim, and the other half of the tribe of Manasseh. So they actually gave these tribes an inheritance. The remaining 7 took their inheritance by themselves after Yeshua died. Thus, because this distinction between the 5 of the tribes and the 7, that's why we mention it separately. They don't have a part in the 5 tribes, and they don't have a part in the rest of the 7 tribes. As the Eibush said to Aaron that they cannot inherit the land, in their portion and their inheritance amongst of Israel. Verse number 3. And this is the following must be the priest entitlement from the people. From those who slaughtered. If it's a ox, it's a sheep. The kohen gets the kohen gets the foreleg and the cheeks, akeva and the stomach. Rashi says meisam. Why does the Torah say a meisam for the people, but not if a kohen brings a sacrifice? Not from the priest. Im shoyr oiseh. Why does it have to say a bull or a sheep? This excludes a wild animal. Hazaroya, which is from the joint above the lower leg bone until the shoulder blade, is called ishpaldun in Old French. That's the zroya. Halachayim, the cheek, along with the tongue. Those symbolic expounded verse would say the foreleg is given to the priest in reward for what Pinchas did with the hand. As it says, he took a spear in his hand. The cheek is a given for the reward for his prayer. As it said, Pinchas stood and prayed. The stomach was given to the Kehanim as a reward for what Pinchas did. And he took a spear and he punctured their stomachs. That's homiletically. You must give in the first of your grain, the first of your wine, and the first of your oils. Bereshis gaze, the first of your fleece, tzeincha, from your flock, and you share your flock. Now she says, this refers to truma. We give to the kohen truma. Although the Torah does not specify any minimal amount, our rabbi determined the minimal amount is a generous measure is 1/40th of the crop. A miserly measure is 1/60th of the crop. An average measure is 1/50th. That's truma. So you either have 3 measures. Ayin Tov gives 1/40th. A little more conservative guys gives 1/50th. A cheap person give 1/60th. So the minimum is 1/60th. They found the support in the Torah that one should not give less than 1/60th from the verse. In the Yecheskel, it says Shishis Eifa. You must separate 1/6 of an Eifa from a chaymer of barley. A sixth of an Eifa is half of a sa. When you give a half a sa for a core, it's 1/60th. For a core is 30 sa. So therefore, the minimum is 1/60th of a core. All these are all Talmudical measurements. Reish is geis seincha, the first fleece of your flock, meaning when you share your flock each year, give the first part to the kohen. Again, we don't give an amount. Our rabbis stipulate the amount is 1/60th. Again, truma is usually 1/60th is the minimum. And how large of a flock is subject to obligation for taking off the first shearing of the animal? So the answer is, the Gemara says 5. If you have less than 5, you don't have to give. As it says, the 5 prepared sheep. It's a pasuk in Shmuel. Rabbi Akiva says, when you derive it from the word, our verse, Reish's gaze, suggests 2. Seincha, another 2, because Reish is plural. Seincha is plural, making it 4. Titen Loi makes it a 5. So that's why, that's you don't have to go to Shmuel, and Rabbi Akiva says, you can learn it from this verse that you need to have 5 sheep, a minimum of 5 sheep. Verse number 5. For your God has selected him from out of all your tribes. Lamed l'sharis b'shem Hashem, who vanav kol hayomim, to stand and serve in the name of God, he and his sons for all time. Now she says, it's an interesting word over here, lamed l'sharis, to stand and serve. From here we learn that the temple services may only be performed standing. In the Gemara teaches, from this verse we learn that the Kehanim, there was no seating in the Beis HaMikdash. The Kehanim had to do all the service while they were standing. And that completes the Chumash for today. We now go to the Tanya of the day. We are in the 10th letter of the Alter Rebbe in the Igeres HaKodesh, in the letters of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe just explained the concept of the way Chesed, how the Torah is both Chesed and Gevurah. Both the concept of the concept of Chesed, of kindness, which we call Espashtus, which is to give, and both the concept of Eish Das Lamai, that the Torah is a fire, because the Torah has within the concept contraction. Why? Because we want that the Chesed should not just be a chesed that we cannot handle. The chesed should come down lamata, should come down into the physical world, and that needs to have gevurah. They need a contraction, and that's why every mitzvah that we do has its limitation, because we want to bring it down begashmis. We want every mitzvah begashmis also physically, and has limitation. Now, because commandments were given to us by being vested in the attribute of gevurah, strength, contraction, and by the contraction of divine radiance, l'chein roiv ha-mitzvahs. Therefore, majority of mitzvahs, yesh lehem shir b'tzumtzum. There's a delay there. We just mentioned 1/60th, 1/50th, 1/40th. There is an amount. You have to have 5 sheep. Exactly. So there's an amount. For example, the length of tzitzis needs to be Yud Beis Gudlin. The Gemara says, the Shulchan Aruch says, it needs to be 12 times the width of a thumb. The tefillin needs to be atzbayim al atzbayim, 2 finger breasts by 2 finger breasts, the minimum. Umeruba dafka needs to be, and according to the opinion of the Goinim quoted by the Alter Rebbe, Shulchan Aruch, and the necessities, it needs to be a square. You can't have a round tefillin. You have to have tefillin that are square. Lulav dalat tvachim, A lulav needs to be at least 4 handbreadths. A sukkah zayin tvachim, and a sukkah needs to be at least 7 handbreadths. A shofar needs to be a tefach. Tefach is a hand. A mikveh mem sa. A mikveh to be kosher needs to be 40 sa, 40 cubits of water. V'chein b'karbonis. It's like 75 gallons of water. V'chein b'karbonis. Yeshlam shir mitzumtzum. So too sacrifices. They have a shear, they have a measure. Mitzumtzum zman, range of age. The Torah says a sheep is 1 year old. And a ram is 2 years old. And potim and oxes. And so too applies to charity. When it comes to charity, we have a mitzvah maisa. It's a 10th, it's whatever, a 5th. You have different numbers, but it's ultimately a number. Even though they are the pillars that the world stands upon. So why is there a limit? And it's written, the world stands on chesed. So if it stands on chesed, acts of charity, the acts of charity, so why is there a number? It should be numberless. Nevertheless, there is a preferable amount of one's income. If 1/5 of one's income, if one desires to perform the best possible manner of 1/5, and 1/10 for an average measure. So there's different in halacha. We have even tzedakah, even though mice is 10th. But we have, if you want to go mice, you want to do tzedakah, you can do 1/5. So there's a number. There's a number. This is called chesed olam. So that's the number. Chesed olam, with what the limitations of the world, the way the mitzvah comes down into a physical manner, that's what you got to do. You can't do lower than that. So the minimum is a mice 10th. But a person like let's learn the Torah. The minimum is 1/60th, but you can go to 1/40th. So that's when even Allah, when it comes to tzedakah, you can go to a ma'aser, but you can go a little higher. Go a little higher. Min hamufcha. If you want to go even higher, go a little higher. But even that higher, there's a number. So the supernal degree of chesed that is drawn down to this manner of measured charity is termed chesed olam, the chesed of the world. What does it mean, Pirush? Chesed al kol hayom. This doesn't mean the chesed of God that endures throughout the day. Hamislavish ba'olam esal yenim b'tatena is vested in the high and low world. Through my arousal from below, which I give tzedakah, and I do it correctly, I generate a man's service. I generate a chesed olam lamayla. Mitzvah tzedakah. This is through the precept of charity that a person does, what people do with one another. So kindness between man and his fellow man draws down divine kindness into the higher and lower worlds. However, because the world is finite and it's measured, even the world itself is measured. The Gemara says, from the earth to the heavens, there's a distance of 500 years. And the Gemara says so too between one heaven and the other heaven, another 500. And the Gemara says, the 6,000 years the world exists. All these things, the Gemara gives a number. We all have numbers. We have numbers to the size of the world. We have numbers to the distance of the world. We have a number to the existence of the world. There's a number in all these aspects. So the world has officially a number. Therefore, since the Torah wants to affect the world that has a gavul, the world itself who has a gavul, has a limitation, so we have the mitzvah has a limitation. And therefore, the Torah commandments of charity and kindness, there's also a limit. There's a number. Like any other mitzvah Torah, just mentioned, tefillin, mezuzah, sukkah, all have a number. There's a mitzvah, even a sukkah, how high it can be, how low it can be. Everything has a number. Everything has its time and have its place. Also its place, right? You can't do the mitzvah of tefillin at night. You can't sit there, you don't do the mitzvah of sukkah. You can't make a bracha on a sukkah out of the holiday of sukkah. Consider a sukkah. But you cannot do the mitzvah of sukkah out of the holiday of sukkah. That's it. So everything has its place. Why? Because we're in the world. Everything the Eibishter wanted, that the mitzvah should be brought down to the world. So now everything has to come down into what's called Ava, into the concept of Avas Olam, Chesed Olam. The way the Chesed affects the world, the way the Chesed ultimately is transmitted to the world. Friend, that is the Tanya of the day. We're still in the middle of a thought, and the Alter Rebbe will continue his thought, but this is where it ends today. Today is the second day of the month of Elul. The Tillim of the day is chapter 10 to chapter 17. 3 chapters are 4, 5, and 6. And you do the chitas of the day. The Rebbe writes today in the Yom Yom, the day today, he writes for the second day of Elul. The children of Israel are called Eretz Chayfetz. Eretz Chayfetz means a land that is desired. They possess numerous precious articles in the love and fear of God, and in fine character traits. Bringing these traits to the surface depends entirely upon individuals stimulating them. It is clear that throughout the earth are wellsprings of living waters. The difference between them is only that some are near the surface and some are far, but it's there. Everything therefore depends on the well digger. If he's lazy, he only can take the water from the distance, from what's close. If he has more patience and he has more work, he brings down water that's deeper. Therefore depends on the well digger, his patience and his perseverance. Now, since Ratzon will is superior faculty that issues decrees, rules over the other faculties, the Ratzon, it all depends on the will. How much will do you have? How much are you going to let that go? Are you going to lose patience? Are you going to lose focus? Are you going to walk away? Therefore, it all depends on your will and compels them to act according to its order. It follows that the essential avodah was essential service in the month of Elul is to arouse one will, to exercise its effect upon the person himself and upon others. I should waken up my will to do what is right, to dig a little deeper, to reveal a little better, because everything, all the potential that I have, all the capabilities that is all there. The water, the living well is there. Let's have to dig a little deeper. I can't give up. So if I can create a will within myself, a ratzon, within myself to create, that's why it's called the month of mercy. If I can create myself, I have mercy upon my well, and to use it out, to dig it up, and to reveal it, that's all I need to do. That's all I need to do, because it's right there. As chayfetz, everything is within you, and that's all you need to do is reveal your potential, your strength, your godliness, your soul, etc., etc., etc. I wish you all a wonderful, beautiful, happy, and healthy day. Somebody wants to blow the shofar.
Rabbi.
Hear the blowing of the shofar.
Rabbi, one of the most difficult things in this generation is to guide our will with the divine soul riding the bus.
Hold on.
What are the tools that we should be holding in our hands to dig in the earth to help create the will that is in alignment with